Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for everything Fulham. I'm joined today with my magnificent Australian friend, the Podfather himself, Elton, and my very underslept co-host, Mark, who is joining us today. He says he wants to be American. He says he wants to be British. He says he wants to be Aussie. He's got to pick a lane at some point, folks. But I'm hosting today. I am Mike from Fulham, Boston. I think Fulham, DC for this week. But welcome, everybody, to a very fun pod that I am very happy to have both of you on after Fulham's magnificent win against top half Sunderland. I say that with a question and still disbelief. Elton, Mark, where were we watching from this week? How are we feeling coming into this week? I know we had 2 weeks of international break where we were essentially seeing, is it a will they, won't they, thinking about, hey, where are we going for the rest of the season? Are we in a relegation fight? Is Silva the man to take us forward? How are we all feeling after this?
Oh, please! I'm dying to tell you how I'm feeling, and there's there's kind of a sadness in me today because not that I don't love you guys, but I just know that a couple of our other That's So Craven friends really do care about a lot of things that happened on the weekend. Some of them being football, and some of them being cricket. And I was really looking forward to face with Dave. And Skibby says he doesn't follow cricket, but he's chirping and sledging away in the background when England are on top. And yeah, so I'm if you want to know how I'm feeling fucking great. We had a win on Saturday. We Australia had a very famous and glorious win on the weekend. Jack and I actually went to the cricket on Saturday and had a magnificent day and watched Australia go 1-0 up in the Ashes. So, yeah, couldn't be happier. Could not be happier.
I can't tell you a single thing about cricket, but that being said, I will come. I will join the party of dunking on Skibby a little bit after our debate. I mean, I don't know about you, Mark. I'm feeling like it's Marco, and I'm feeling like let's have a contract. Let's have him do a jubilee. Maybe we have him do an open air bus parade. I don't know, Mark. What are you thinking?
I'm very happy with our last result. Just one final word on cricket. I know it's not a cricket show, but Mike, don't take it too seriously. It's a sport where silly mid-on is a term, as well as googlies and beamers and whatever. I sit with a lot of British folk around me at my company, so yeah. But obviously Elton and Jack and the rest of the Aussies are super happy. I'm happy for them, but I'm more happy to talk about Sunderland Fulham, where I don't know. Marco in. The great debate was amazing. Very, very happy, but also cautiously optimistic. It's a 1-0. It could have been more. We'll discuss that. But it's a step in the right direction. As Marco often says, let's keep our feet on the ground, right? Let's be humble. Let's be grounded and realistic. But we've hopefully turned this ship around, and I'm really looking forward to diving into the match and you guys' opinion on it as well.
Yeah, and by the way, Mark, I'm going to give you a quick yellow card for speaking in tongues. We don't do that on this show, to my knowledge. So I'd like you to stick to some form of English. I guess we have to open it up to British, American, or Australian English.
I was
But
going to say that's pretty rich coming from you, Mike.
hey, I use some form of English, so it's one of the three. To me, as a red-blooded American, I'm pretty sure I'm sticking to baseball. World Series was great. I'm all in. An American team won, so it's still the world's game. It was the World Series because we beat
Mm.
Canada, so that's fine. But on to actually an English sport, we can talk about Fulham Sunderland. I mean, feels like a game that while Sunderland was the team coming in the European spots, that they really didn't pose much of a resistance, much of a threat. Mark, I struggle to think about the number of chances that they really had. Maybe a flick off header, maybe one or two breakthroughs. What were your thoughts on our first look at Sunderland?
I don't want to use the word fear because I think that's a silly word. It's a strange word to use for a newly promoted team, but they were in fourth at the start of the day. And they did do something right. I think they have real fighting spirit. Typically, maybe not in our match, but drawing with Arsenal, getting an equalizer in extra time, that shows some real grit, some determination. So I went in not very optimistic. And to their credit, they didn't have many chances, but the chances they had, I think it was at the start of both halves, first half and second half. Won't go into it too much, but they were very well drilled. That was very quick, and I think you need to be quick in this game, right? So when they attack, I think they almost don't think. They just know what they're going to do and they go for it. And I really respected that about them. But like you said, probably 2 opportunities at most. If you watch the highlights, because I definitely did, you have to savor the wins. You look at the Sunderland highlights, it looks like a pretty even game, but that being at the Cottage myself, it definitely was not an even game. I wouldn't say we dominated, but it definitely wasn't 50-50. It was probably somewhere in between. We were comfortably better and we comfortably had more opportunities. And that's a rare, unusual, and fun place to be at as a Fulham fan.
So, Mark, I gotta ask you though, especially with the atmosphere around the club over the last couple of weeks. The last time we reconvened, it was the Everton match, which was probably the worst display we've seen potentially in the entire Marco Silva era at Fulham. What was the atmosphere like around the club? What was the atmosphere in the ground? Because again, we've kind of had this toxicity festering for a couple of weeks, and this idea of again, will he, won't he, with Marco. How was the spirit in the ground?
It wouldn't say it was damp. It was pretty average, to be fair, but it really changed the moment the players came out and showed intent. Now, fair play to the Sunderland away fans. Long way to travel, and they were very, very loud, but they shut up very quickly because honestly, you couldn't tell which team was 4th and which team was 15th when we were playing. We're going to look at the stats later, but we dominated. We really fought for every single ball, and you're going to hear the excuses of it was 50-50 or the ref was on their side. Absolute nonsense. So I know I often complain about the refs. The ref, I don't think he really got any wrong. There was one 50-50 decision where Calvin Bassey bumped into their striker, but, that's a shoulder to shoulder in my opinion. Obviously, I'm going to say that as a Fulham fan. But in general, I mean, the mood was good because you know what? I think the fans could tell the players really cared. We were fighting for those second balls, really going for it, being dynamic, being attacking. Yeah, I don't know. I was very happy, and we got noisier as the game progressed.
I mean, it's great to see that Calvin Bassey's been hitting the weight room with Adama, especially since he got back from AFCON. He needed something to take his eyes off the missed penalty. Elton, I know we've talked about specifically this idea of we didn't have a lot of options in terms of what the lineup was going to be. To a degree, it had to pick itself with Muniz out. With Anthony Robinson still out injured. But I'm curious, coming into the match, Sasa Lukic was also suspended. What were your thoughts about the lineup coming out and how we were approaching the match?
Well, I guess the only change from the previous week was in fact Lukic, and that was forced.
Mm-hmm.
There was still a question mark as to whether Marco would deny the fans' will once again and actually not put Iwobi in the middle. I still thought that he was going to actually pick Iwobi somewhere else. I really didn't believe he was going to do it, just because. So fairly predictable. I mean, I guess the other kind of outside question could have been whether or not Chuck started, whether it was time for him to start, and whether Silva persisted with Kevin starting. To me, I think those were kind of questions in my mind. I didn't even though the form's possibly been a bit choppy at the back, and we have leaked some goals and struggled over the last month to keep clean sheets. I know this is our second clean sheet, but I didn't believe that Silva was going to change the lineup at the back. So yeah, fairly predictable, I guess. But I'm very, very happy to see Iwobi in the middle, and I think he absolutely delivered from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, when you looked at the lineup and you saw things coming out, there might have been the change of justice for Cuenca, especially after Bassi had a tough international break. But I have to applaud Bassi for coming in, putting his head down, especially off of a tough international break, and coming in and putting in a very, very solid performance. I think the other person, and we'll get to him a little bit more later, but Mark, we have to talk about our warrior striker. We had so many people coming back from the international break, and Raul puts in an absolute shift, not only for Mexico, but comes in and plays a full 90 for Fulham at 34 years old with what I presume is most of a skull intact at this point, although he took a pretty nasty hit to the head. How are we feeling? Obviously, Muniz is out until February. We had talked about Lupalo Bai coming in and joining the team. There's obviously been talk about Marco's intent with Kusesari. So yeah, how are we feeling about Jimenez, especially coming into the game?
Look, no one can ever fault certain players' attitudes, right, and their work ethic, and I think that really endears you to someone, even if the end product isn't necessarily there. This isn't, a roundabout way of ragging on Raul. He is a very talented player, a real poacher, so he needs the service, and when he eventually gets the service, he can do what a poacher does, and he can score goals. But yeah, 170 minutes over 2 games for Mexico, comes back, plays the full 90, like you said, really, really impressive. I heard some mixed opinions about him. I was of the opinion that he did well. He sort of put himself about. He tried to lay off balls with his shoulder, with his chest, and sort of cause a nuisance. But yeah, really, really respect what he's done. I still think we're riding our luck, just like we were riding our luck last season with Leno, hoping he wouldn't get injured because we need someone, and it's clear that Kusiasari is absolutely not trusted. Muniz is out, like you said. There are murmurings that we're going to go for a box-to-box midfielder and another striker in January. Now, knowing us, it's probably going to be January 30th. But still, it'd be good to get some cover there. Really, if it's very sad, but if Kusiasari is just not in Marco's plans at all, then we just write that off, right? It's I can't understand why. Maybe we'll never find out why, but we need to have a plan B, and we need someone just in case Raul can't continue being the superhuman Mexican man-wolf that he is.
I mean, Marco's already told us what his backup plan is. He's going to play Harry Wilson in the false nine. He said it in the press conference. But I will say I saw similar feedback to what you said specifically around the mixed reviews of Raul's performance. I'm going to go out on a limb. I actually thought Raul was the man of the match. The industry that he put in, the press from the front, getting the goal on top of it. What else do you ask for from a striker? He really did a great job connecting play. He came back and dropped into the defense. He actually had a very clear clearance right at the end of the game that we really needed him to have. He was everywhere and anywhere that we needed him to be, and I was really happy to see. I think Elton, the other part of the game, at least in the first half, we came in with some real intent. We came in with some hunger and aggression, and we saw a couple opportunities that really stuck out. Whether it was Harry Wilson's curler on the back post, whether it was one of Kevin's opportunities where he goes one-on-one with the keeper. Obviously, we probably need to be a little more potent in front of goal, but you've got to love the energy that we were seeing out of the boys.
Well, perhaps I was watching a different feed, upside down even, but I disagree with you. Yeah, pretty fervently, if that's the right word. I thought great respect to Raul. He's really being asked to stand up, and he's one of those guys I think you can really rely on and depend on. I suspect he actually plays through more niggles and injuries than we know about. I think he's a really tough competitor, and he's there for the badge, no question about it for me. And he understands the situation. He will know that Marco isn't ready to trust Kusiasari, and obviously his buddy and partner Muniz is out. He looked, despite his effort, which I thought was mercurial, I thought he looked really tired. Like he literally needs a week off, maybe longer. He looked really exhausted to me. He looked leggy. The ball was getting caught under his feet a few times. But I do also understand that it looked like a very wet surface, almost quite waterlogged surface. And it was noticeable that Kevin, the ball was getting caught under Kevin's feet as well. He wasn't really reading the pace of the ball and the flow. And a number of passes were sort of under hit from both sides. I think, Mark, is that Are you in agreement with that? That the pitch seemed quite heavy and much slower than normal Craven Cottage pitch.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. It was
Looked like a pretty miserable day.
I wouldn't call it horrific. It wasn't quite typhoon weather, but it was definitely we're
It was very
definitely
wet.
glad to be under the cover of the roof. But yeah, I think that
Yeah.
it's fair to say that played a part.
I mean, look, fair play. He got the goal. That's all we needed from him, and very grateful for that. But I didn't think he had a great game. I really didn't, and I'm not. Um, I'm very, very, very grateful for the guy, and I just fingers crossed. And I looked at him. I thought, geez, what are we doing here? We have no options. But this is the kind of situation where you cause a really serious injury because the guy's tired, and he goes into a challenge and just isn't just on the money, and he gets a nasty injury. Fingers crossed. I hope that doesn't happen. That would be so disastrous for us. But yeah, not to be controversial or contrary for contrary's sake, but I didn't think he had a great game.
Well, you can be a lot of things in this world, Elton. Just don't be beige. So I think we're pretty good there. But I definitely agree with you. Watching the match and look, is Kevin the finished article? No, he's definitely not. But you saw the ball getting caught under his feet when he was trying to break away, take shots, when he was trying to take people on. It looked like he almost forgot the ball a couple of times. So it was definitely one of those. You have to play the conditions that are around you, and it's definitely something scary, just to make sure that we keep an eye on. And then thinking about the rest of the half, we had a couple incisive runs. Sessegnon comes in with absolutely no one in the box. So Elton, to your point, there was absolutely no one there, and makes this breakthrough run where he has to take this crazy shot. He has another one where he has to take this crazy shot with his left foot going the wrong direction. But we looked like if a team was going to get a goal, at least in the first half, with the exception of maybe stoppage time, that it was going to be Fulham. I think, I don't know about the two of you, but this season I'm going to be nervous in the last 5 minutes of any half, and probably the first 5 minutes of any half, just how we stop and end a half. That, hey, are we going to get caught sleeping? But the possession stats show it themselves. The shots, 24 shots in the match, show it. We look to be the team on top. And then going into the second half, I know that's what everybody really wants to talk about. Was a star born? Is Samuel Chukwueze the guy who is going to bring us to the next level? We have pursued this guy since last January. Is he living up to the hype, Elton?
Oh, absolutely. I'm genuinely surprised, unless there's some kind of injury or fitness issue that the management team don't think he's ready for it, or someone in the team thinks he hasn't adapted as yet to Premier League football. I'm calling bullshit on all of that. He is special. I think he is. There was most of the hype was around Kevin, and I remember calling it and saying, I think we're going to be surprised by Chukwueze when we actually see what he can do. Not Kevin. I really like what's happening there. Perhaps not the full article yet, but I think he's really exciting. But Chukwueze's special. He has immediate impact when he comes on. He's tricky. He's skillful. He's got great vision. He absolutely knows how to pick a man out. And I just hope that we can learn to understand his movement and actually play off him in a more attacking and dynamic way than I think we're even doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, Elton, look, everybody was a big fan of Chukwueze dating back, even as I said, to the winter transfer window before. Injuries have always been the thing that has been his downfall. Ever since he left, I believe it was Villarreal to go to AC Milan, like he has just had injuries. Even when he joined us, he got himself hurt on his first international duty. But I think you're absolutely right. Like I think we've talked about how we introduce players into the team, and I think for all of our gripes about not immediately introducing people in and kind of letting them feel out the system, Chukwueze has taken like a duck to water and absolutely just understood the assignment and done what Marco's asked. I think one of the interesting things I would love to hear from Mark specifically, as we've talked about, that he's predominantly a right winger. I think most people thought that, hey, he's the future replacement to Wilson. Do we now have a question about who starts next week on the left, whether it's Kevin, whether it's Chukwueze, or do we need to be careful and have these cameo performances and not necessarily ruin, our star signings confidence either? It's a bit of a balance, but I think it's a good problem to have.
You're absolutely right. It's a great problem to have, but yeah, I mean, I think for consistency's sake, probably Kevin will continue to start. Kevin's a little raw, right? And I think this is what was discussed in our group chat during the summer transfer window, which is really exciting. I forget whether it was you, Mike, or Skibby, or one of the lads said Chukwueze is an amazing pickup. He's basically Kevin, but with experience. So that is super exciting to see, right? Because we can see the potential in Kevin. He got himself in some good positions. He's ridiculously skillful, and he can also just beat players with pure trickery and pace. Like, he's like, I'm just gonna take you on now, and you're gonna lose. So it's really fun to watch Kevin. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pick one out of the three. I know Wilson's been on fire recently, and he had some good opportunities as well. I'm glad he carried that confidence over from the Wales match. But yeah, we'll see. I think it remains Kevin and Wilson now, with Chukwueze still pushing. But I'm glad that we're finally getting to that stage, because it was so frustrating at the beginning of the season to see £70 million worth of winger on the bench. And it's like, guys, what are we doing? Like, this, let's just blood them immediately, and maybe we'll have 2 or 3 not great matches. They'll be ready by match 5 or match 7. But we're getting to that point, so let's keep staying positive.
The thing about those two guys, Chuck and Kevin, I think Kevin is taking. No, hang on. I'm going to say it a different way. I think Chukwueze is absolutely adapted. There may still be a kind of rehab or a fitness issue that they're managing, because I cannot, for any other reason, understand why he wouldn't start. Notwithstanding the fact that Harry Wilson's had some really good international form, and he has shown some pretty good moments from time to time over the last month for us. The problem with Harry is always a consistency issue. There's no doubt he's got the talent, and he does bring a unique skill. That's something we're really lacking, and that is someone who is hungry and confident to have a shot outside the box. So that's always on with him. But I was chatting to Dave about this the other day, I think, or perhaps more of us. And I'd love us to find ourselves in a situation where it's very difficult to decide who we play on the right wing, whether it be Chuck or Harry Wilson. But then what happens is you get yourself into a situation where the manager, with so much confidence in 2 players in a position, can truly kind of roll the dice and flip a coin. And if one does not work out, he can actually make a change very early, knowing full well that the other player can do the business and maybe a better fit for the state of the game or how the opposition have lined up. And I kind of see a pathway to us ending up there with those 2 guys, Chukwueze and Harry Wilson. And Kevin, just on Kevin, I mean, yes, he's clearly tricky. He's skillful. He's finishing, as we saw on the weekend, leaves a little bit to be desired. But I think he can get there. I'm not too concerned about that. But I'm saying I take the raw diamond and I pick him every week because he's that dangerous and he's that good at beating a man and getting a ball in. And his balls into the box from the byline are actually very, very good. He's got the ability from a really short backswing to either loop it up or actually unleash and get a pass away or get a cross away better than most. So I'm taking him, even if he's not the complete article. I think what he provides as an outlet on the wing is really exciting as it is, and it can only get better.
Yeah, and Elton, I could not agree with you more. Especially, this is a great problem to have, and I really like the commentary specifically on Wilson and the role he plays. Like, it's great to have tricky wingers. It's great to have somebody who can be a little more direct. But our team, and I think we talk about this a lot, was crying out for people to shoot, and Wilson is never afraid to shoot. I was amazed. I think I lost a bet this week that Sander Berger actually took a shot outside the box, but it's one of those things where Wilson is almost the perfect complement to a Chukwueze, a Kevin, even a Josh King, who really hasn't shot much unless he's in the box. So I think there's a role for all of them in that rotation. The one question I want to pose to both of you, and this is a conversation I've had with those close to me, is what happens when we get Anthony Robinson back? Because this kind of works in two ways. Number one, our leading goal scorer right now, I believe, is still, other than own goal, Ryan Sessegnon. Do we get to actually move him more up the field and into one of those winger positions as well? And second of all, which winger? And I'm gonna pull Iwobi out of this conversation for a second, because despite what Marco is saying, he is clearly a midfielder at least until January, a center midfielder. Which winger do we want to complement Anthony Robinson and the skill set that he brings to the table when he returns from injury?
Well, I can see two futures here, and they both look pretty exciting to me. I I think Cess is, if you push Cess up, he's got the confidence. Cess was a bit of a beaten man, kind of skulking back from North London to West London, if you like. And I think he's actually exercised an awful lot out of the last few years, and he's confident. He knows he's contributing. He's a high value member of our squad, and if you were unsure of whether he could make a contribution in a starting lineup last year, I think he's beaten that completely away. Um, could he do the job on the wing? Sure, he could. That's actually what we thought he was going to be doing, and he did show in some of his early games for us, in this phase of his time at Fulham. He did show that he actually can make a difference on the wing. He's got a really good footballing brain. He's got an instinct. When he is playing in the wing, he's one of those guys that can arrive in the box. He's got a really good instinct for the goal. So, and we have seen him combine with Anthony Robinson. We have seen it. But then I think about the possibilities of Kevin combining with Robinson, and that is that makes me salivate.
I mean, Mark, I'm very curious on your thoughts about that latter combination. Where I agree with Elton that there is something very, very interesting about Kevin and Anthony Robinson playing together, but I also wonder which one of them defends. I think one of the really interesting things that we're getting to see with Kevin playing with Ryan Sessegnon is Sess comes into the space more centrally, giving Kevin the
Hmm.
wing. And when we think about how Anthony Robinson plays, it's much more of an overlapping box to box, kind of more of what we are seeing from the more in vogue fullback, if you will, right now, unless you have somebody kind of swapping to the outside back. So I guess, Mark, or how do you see that all working out, and which winger combination would you prefer once we get Robinson back?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you're right, they play slightly different roles, Kevin and Cess. But can you just imagine the sheer pace we would have with Kevin and Robinson? Like, we could push up for days, and the only one beating them in a foot race is Adama Traore or maybe Jeremy Doku. I don't know.
Don't
A
talk
few
about
names, but
Adama Traore beating us in a foot race. That may come back to bite us later in the season.
it depends how gassed he is for sure. But I'd really like to see. We haven't seen it yet, so I'd really like to see that Kevin, pardon me, Kevin Robinson, um, combination. But you're right. One of them will slightly have to adjust the way they will play. I think it will be Kevin, right? Because I don't see Robbo taking shots. So I don't see Robbo necessarily taking his man on as much. But yeah, like everyone has said, what a great problem to have that depth, and not only depth, because this is one of Skibby. You can take your shot at him if you want, Mike. But this is one of Skibby's argument. We have depth. We just have quality, and it's like, what, that kind of the same thing here. Then you don't have depth, but or of the same
Yeah,
quality.
I'm pretty sure when people talk about depth, they are talking about quality.
Yeah,
I will
agree.
say, I want to give a quick shout out to Claire Green in the comments. And by the way, we have a Discord. Please feel free to chime in. We love the comments. We're going to take some questions from there in a little bit. But Claire Green points out that Chukwueze has done such a great job adjusting to our style of play and doing it even a little quicker than Kevin. And I think what I'm hearing you both say is in the long run, Kevin could adjust in a really interesting way, but we're trying to see him figure out his way into Marco's system where Chukwueze kind of he knows what he wants to do with the ball. He has a vision. He understands what he wants to do. And I'm pretty sure I've exceeded a quota on this podcast by not actually mentioning it took me 38 minutes to mention how incredible that ball is into Raul. I mean, it is pinpoint perfect and a poacher's finish. I mean, what were your reactions when you see Chukwueze get on the ball, beat a man, and put a ball in like that?
Yeah, I was
Go
delighted.
ahead,
The
Mark.
stadium erupted. I mean,
Yeah.
because it felt deserved. And you know what? It was deserved. And how do I know that? Because I know how to use Google, and Google tells me that our XG, different calculations from different websites, but we were way better than Sunderland. I saw one that said 2.2 to 0.17. I saw another that said 3.1 to 0.6. So we were hammering. Okay, maybe not hammering. That's a bit harsh, but we had multiple opportunities and multiple good opportunities. We had that Emil Smith Rowe chance. We had that Ryan Sessegnon chance. We had Harry Wilson in the beginning. We had Harry Wilson through the middle in the second half as well. And what I liked about them, and the Sunderland manager, I'm going to get his name wrong, so I'm not going to mention it, but he referenced this in the post-match conference. He said they had multiple avenues of attack, and we saw it. And that's what excites me, because before, we've just gone down the left. We've done it very well. Think about how good you have to be at doing something that your opponent knows you're going to do it, and you still do it and win anyway. But we need to evolve. We need those shots outside the box. We need the cutbacks. We need the late runs from ESR, another name we haven't mentioned. But it was very, very exciting. Like I said, the stadium erupted, and it was deserved. It would have been so unfair if Sunderland had left that game with anything. Full respect to them. They've done really well since they've come back. But that day, they 100% didn't show up. And it would have been really, really gut-wrenching if they got an extra time equalizer or held out for 0-0.
Yeah, Elton, it absolutely pains me to bring this up because ESR has been my irrational hatred player of the season. But the impact that he had off the bench, what were your thoughts when he came on and kind of what he showed us?
I could just read out my private WhatsApp group commentary if you like.
I think that's perfect. Why do you think I led you into this? I think that's perfect.
Well, because Dave asked me the same question, and my response was definitely better, which is great. And you know, I'm here for it. I want him to do well. I am frustrated that we spent £34 million and haven't fully got a return on that investment, in my view. But he was brighter. There was some energy there. He did some good things. He's a capable player. There's no question about that. That is never a question in my mind as to whether he's skillful, whether he's talented, whether he's clever, and whether he has a good footballing brain. My problems actually with him are more about what I see and feel when we're out of possession. I just don't think he works hard enough for his teammates. He looks a little scared of human contact, physical contact, particularly of the aerial type. He just doesn't want to be part of it. He will always shy away from it, and he will feign to kind of get involved, win the ball back, but he doesn't go in. And I think there are many, many examples in the history of football and in current football where sublime players, you're happy to carry them. You know, Messi, although I would say Messi, he's quite happy to go in. He dives in and he's not shy at all. But you know, a lot of people might comment on the fact that Messi seems to walk around and doesn't seem to do much or doesn't track back, and teams allow him to not do a lot of defending. And that's fine because he's fucking ridiculous. and he always delivers. But I don't see the other side of the equation, and we're not getting huge number of regular assists, consistent performances. 15 goal, 20 goal seasons from ESR. And then there to me, there's a liability there in terms of what he does off the ball, and he's kind of lack of serious pressing. So I've still got a problem. I want the problem to go away, and I have to say that it's going in the right direction. Um, but I'm more into logarithmic curves than linear ones. There's particularly low flat linear ones.
I will say, first of all, I think the player that might have been the one you were searching for was Mesut Ozil. That's the one where I think about us somebody carrying a player. The Arsenal link doesn't hurt. I couldn't agree more, especially towards the end of the game when we're defending a 1-0 lead. He was the one guy who was kind of feigning dropping back, and I was losing my head over this. I also think there's a fitness issue involved, and anyone who attends a Fulham Boston watch along will tell you that I have a very specific name for ESR whenever he comes on. I'm trying to get ChatGPT to create a graphic for it as well, for his superhero alter ego. That being said, and I want to start laying down this gauntlet. I will do it across the board. I believe that in the UK, you all call it the beep test. I have full confidence that I can beat ESR in a beep test. I think his fitness
want to see
lacks,
this. I want to see this.
Lacks a lot to be desired. I'm so unimpressed the fact that he has been at the club for over a year and still has not played a full 90 minutes. I can only put that down to he does not take his fitness seriously. Even the players joke he spends extra time on upper body day. I want to go for a beep test against him. I'm figuring out the actual what is the gauntlet, whether it's, hey, I will donate, one paycheck, loser donates a paycheck to charity, and I will do that myself. But yeah, I want to see I want to see him do a beep test. I just don't believe that he's necessarily putting in the same miles that even a Josh King is putting in.
Well, look, Mike, just between the three of us here, because no one else is listening. I'm sure no one can overhear me. What is your beep test score?
Haven't done it in years. When I was in university, I could do into the mid to high 60s, maybe low 70s. I would say very confidently right now I could probably maybe hit 30, 35, maybe 40. I want to see it. I genuinely want to see it. So again, I'll make my way over to the UK. I will go to Mottsboro and let's go and do it.
Here we go.
There's my gauntlet coming down.
Please, free engagement. I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, if you're listening there in Fulham marketing and commercial and comms, make it happen.
Yeah,
make it happen.
Absolutely. But in all seriousness, and as we talk about the impact of this match overall, I mean, look, this was a win we absolutely needed. Our performances had been slipping. I believe it was either 4 out of 5 or 6 out of 7 had been losses, something like that. And as we look at the table right now, what a difference a day makes. Again, Ross Tierney comments, 3 points does wonders in the weekend to everyone's confidence, huh? When we think about, where this puts us in the table, I believe it sits us in 14th. I think we have a slide for this, but believe it puts us in 14th. Puts us still 3 points ahead of the drop, but also don't say it too loudly. We're also 5 points away from actually being back in the European conversations. I see clubs where managers candidly should be much more on the hot seat, like Liverpool, than Marco Silva is. I mean, we have an interesting and a tricky run of games coming in. I know we have City and I believe who's the other one that we have in that group, but it's not going to be the easiest run of matches. This was crucial. How do we feel coming into kind of the next couple?
Well, firstly, I was concerned coming into this game, and I thought that I watched the highlights of Sunderland maybe 4 or 5 games And I thought, well, admittedly, I watched 3 minutes of highlights, which can be very, very deceptive and distorted. But they looked to me like a team that could score goals, and they were very attacking, and they looked like they were arriving in the box and creating a lot of havoc, all the things that we don't do that well. And so I, particularly given our form coming into this game and into the international break, I was really concerned that we could lose this. And I was kind of quite surprised. I thought they were poor. If you look at the overall statistics, I think it looks about 55, 45% possession. But I do remember a couple of times during our feed, TV coverage, seeing that we had in the region of 80 something percent possession, certainly within the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then it leveled out a bit, but there were other times in the game where we absolutely dominated them. So what I'm getting to is that I know they've had some impressive results and against some pretty good teams, and they've easily beaten some of the teams below, like I think they've beaten Man United. Did they beat Man United or did they draw with them? Um, anyway, I what I guess I'm saying is I cannot see them staying in their current position. I think they've got a nosebleed up there, and I don't even see them as a mid-table team. From the few games that I've seen from the teams we've played, viz Fulham, I don't see them as a mid-table team at all. So I expect to be passing them on the way through, on our way to Christmas. And it's pretty compact, really. In between but fifth position down to 15th, where we are. There's very few points in it, and there may well be a few imposters in that group. And I don't include the likes of Newcastle and Liverpool, and even Man U and Tottenham in that. I think they're genuinely mid table or top of the table, top half of the table teams. But this is a very, very important game. A, for points. B, that if we lost, I think that would be really precarious from a points perspective, and probably even more worrying from a confidence point of view. And I think you kind of really get yourself in a position where it could really go down from there. And I thought we did it relatively easy, in the same old kind of issues that we normally come up against, where we defend really. We easily defended and got out of defense yesterday. When we lost the ball, we won it back very comfortably. They did try to press us early on, but we handled it with ease, really. And I think in midfield we were really comfortable. We just weren't very clinical with the opportunities, and we probably had more opportunities than we normally have, with Kevin chipping in, with Cess getting into a good position, and Raul had a few bits and pieces, but we still, that's why it's so dangerous if we go one down, because what's the likelihood of us scoring two in a game at the moment? It's not great.
Yeah, Mark, how are you feeling for the run-in? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the run-in's going to be tough. Final words on Sunderland. I think what we saw from Sunderland, surprisingly, is what we're used to seeing from ourselves. Sort of, I'd almost call it timid. I don't know if the manager put too much respect on our name, because they didn't really... Yes, they pressed us for a bit, and they're like, oh, that's not working, so we're going to just give up the press after, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Very few people in the box. I love that from us. If you look at Raul's goal, I think there's 4 Fulham players in the box. When's the last time we've seen 4 Fulham players in the box? Bloody never, right? So it's great that that's happened. So it was very weird to see a sort of timid, shy Sunderland. That wasn't what I was expecting. Very happy for the points. It is a tough run-in. We have Tottenham away. We have Man City at home. I think Palace is in there as well. And Palace are maybe coming up. But they're also a very, very solid side under Glasner. But you know what? I think Tottenham, maybe there's something there. I know the fans aren't super happy with Thomas Frank and the way he plays. They do have to play PSG on Wednesday, and we've beaten them. They are a good side. I'm not saying, yeah, it's 3 points, this is a gimme, but if we play the way we played against Sunderland, without fear, intelligently attacking, football, but still respectful, and they have a bad day, or we get a good decision in our favor, whether it's a penalty, whether it's a second yellow. Romero is out as well. That's another key point to mention. He's a stalwart for them. Maybe there's something there. I'd take a point. I'd look for more.
Yeah, so the run-in of fixtures, by the way, is Tottenham, then Man City, Crystal Palace, and then Burnley before the EFL Cup quarterfinal against Newcastle. I think we all know which game absolutely needs to be a must-win in there. I can't stand it if we don't actually beat Burnley. But yeah, I mean, look, it's fun. It's fun again. I think the atmosphere is a little bit better across the board. I'm very, very excited to see how we line up against Spurs. I think that was actually one of the questions in the Discord specifically, which is early predictions from Spanish FFC Ultras. Is do we stick with Iwobi and Berger for what he calls spuds, but I think he means Spurs, or will Marco revert to type now that Lukic is back to being available?
I think I know the answer for me, and that's absolutely I would pick Iwobi. Not out of frustration, but I think unfortunately Iwobi has done really well in the middle. The two occasions this season where he's been played in the middle, but both could arguably said to being against fairly weak opposition. And so in the back of Silva's mind, he might be thinking, maybe we need a little bit more muscle in there. I think that's a mistake because I actually think the creativity of Alex Iwobi, he actually reads the game really, really well. He finds himself and makes himself available in so many good positions, particularly deeper in defence. And that I think that's really, really valuable. And I actually think I don't think I'm just kidding or being wishful here. I believe he is a better influence and brings something out of Berger that Lukic doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, so leading into that though, Mark, are you picking if Iwobi's got one of those spots? Is it Berger off of the back of his performance against Sunderland, or do you really just want to see the Palhinha versus Palhinha light matchup against Spurs? That's got to be my question.
That's a great way to frame it. Well, Palhinha light will probably lose to Palhinha, so that's not great. Like Elton said, and others have raised it as well, I love how Berger has been given new license to roam forward, and Iwobi helps with that. So I think we gain more from an attacking position, having them both on the pitch, than we lose not having the Berger Lukic double pivot. I think we've tried it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'd like us to employ the dark arts a bit more. I know Lukic is pretty good at this. But now that we have two CDMs back, can always just swap one out at 60 minutes, right? Just keep doing those, borderline fouls until you get a yellow. Maybe do one more, don't get caught, then swap them out. Like we've seen Newcastle do that against us, where it's Guimaraes and Joe Linton and I don't think it was Tonali, it was someone else, but they were just kicking lumps out of us. And the moment one of them got a yellow, the other one just swapped straight in. It's not the nicest, but it's effective. And I think we need to be a bit more streetwise. We need to be a bit meaner if we're going to try and win some of these like really, really tough matches. We need every advantage we can get. Sunderland, I know, okay, final point on Sunderland. I know I said that before, but I spotted early on, they did these, I think Man City does it as well. They're not quite fouls. I know we do them a little bit as well, just like little short shirt pulls, little tugs, nothing that would definitely dispossess a player, but enough to put them off balance. And I'd like to see more of that from Fulham. I think Anderson does a good job, maybe Lukic, but overall, I think we can be a bit of a meaner side. I know that was a bit of a ADHD tangent we went on there, but
no, it was a very political non-answer of who's going to start. So I'm going to press you. Is it Berger or is it Lukic?
It's Berger, 100%.
Okay, there we go. I definitely agree. I would like us to perform some of the dark arts. It feels at times that Marco is hell bent on taking away this nice Fulham stereotype, and I am
Mhm.
absolutely here for it. We're coming up on time, but I want to do a couple quick fire questions with both of you. I see in the chat Steve Reynolds asking specifically about a specific transfer with Tyreek George, especially considering our form last week, the wingers we have. He asked, does this rule out us going back in for George? I'll take it a step further. As we start to think about transfers, there are a lot of things coming up in the window. Obviously, we have to keep one eye on Chukwueze's loan fee if we actually want to be able to pay it. We have a couple players who are actually out of contract coming into the new season. We often talk about TC, we talk about Raul, we talk about Adama. We have to remember Wilson is out of contract. I believe Cess is out of contract as well. So as we're looking to plan ahead, if you were to prioritize, obviously we've spoken about having a box-to-box midfielder and a new striker join, but which of those are you prioritizing as we go into the window? Is it the new fee? Is it signing somebody like Cess or Wilson back up? Is it making sure that we have money in the coffers for Chukwueze? I'm really curious, and this will lead me into the last question I have as well.
So I will be hoping that we actually conclude the business for Chukwueze. I think we should buy him. Um, he's a level of quality that we need, and he's an upgrade definitely in the wing position. So I hope we find a way to do that.
I believe it's
Um,
25 to 30 million, Elton.
yeah, I don't care. The answer is yes. uh, we should be finding a way to do that. Um, I think I I like the idea of keeping Cess around, and it's not nostalgic. I think he's earned his position. He's there's a bit of utility to him, but even if all he did was back up Anthony Robinson, and I think we talk about backing up Anthony Robinson, I just I actually don't know when Anthony Robinson is going to return. And even when he does, it's going to be a very slow introduction because he's obviously got a big problem and he's too valuable a player to just throw into the deep end because we want to see some Jedi magic. It's not going to happen. So this is a slow burn if and when he does actually return. And that there's every possibility that it could play out right to the end of the season, in which case he doesn't have many games, and then you've got to make some real decisions about players that you might otherwise be thinking, yep, ready to move them on. Harry Wilson nearly went out the door to Leeds. So he's kind of you'd think he must be one that we're thinking, time to cash in or make a commitment on him. But if it's a question of Chukwueze or Harry Wilson, I know which one I'd go for. I know there's some further investment, but if we had to choose one, I'd be picking Chukwueze for sure, and I'd be wanting to find a way to keep Cess.
I mean, Mark, I think one of the things that we're thinking about is with all these players is who do we keep? Yes, there's some nostalgia, but as Elton said, there's utility in Cess, especially when
Mhm.
Robinson is probably going to be a little cautious coming into a home World Cup year. But also, are we ruling out buying somebody like a George in the window in order to make Chukwueze permanent early? I mean, I'm curious where are your priorities as we kind of, are 5-6 weeks away from the opening of the January transfer window, which means we're 8 weeks away from Fulham actually making a decision on something.
Very true. I'm gonna revert to type and be beige and basically just agree with everything Elton said. But on a more serious note, yes, keep Chukwueze, keep Cess. I want to roll the dice on Wilson, and what I mean by that, this could absolutely blow up in our face. But I would give him an extension. We'd have to negotiate the pay, right? But here's the thing: I think there is an appetite from the promoted teams for someone like Wilson, right? Someone he's played in the Prem, he's even started in the Prem for an established mid-table team Who do you want? I'm sure Silva's not the only manager who comes up and says, "Okay, we'll take from Europe. We'll look." But who can we get that's good value that we know can go right now, could get us goals and knows this league? So whoever gets promoted, I don't know, Coventry, Middlesbrough, just to throw out some names, right? They would probably be interested in a Wilson if we could offer him at a reasonable price. What is a reasonable price? He's going to be 29 next year. We could do 20, we could do 15 plus 5. That's not bad for someone that we've just signed on a new contract. Now, that is risky because what if we sign him on a 3-year, he gets injured or no one wants him? Now we have basically a backup winger on expensive wages for at least another 2 to 3 years. But I think there's a world in which we can use some sneakiness and financial engineering to make our books look better. So Cess for sure, Chuku for sure. If we have to choose between a striker and an 8, the 8. And it's a shame about George. I think we messed up that swap, but I think would I take that swap if it came again? I doubt we'd do it for the same money. I think George's value has risen and Wilson's has fallen, so that makes it tricky. I think I would take that swap, but Wilson is, I think, a bit more of a complicated question than just let the contract run out.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, especially with the new rules that are coming into place, we can't keep letting players go for nothing. I mean, there are some we let go because, for example, Vinicius, no one's going to want Carlos Vinicius, although he is apparently tearing it up in Brazil right now. But I think there's also the piece of, as much as everybody's going to boo me for saying the T word, how do we let Tosin go for absolutely nothing? That is pretty awful on our parts, and we need to get better about doing that business and being able to sell players on before they run down their contracts with us. Elton, I'm not sure if you have any other thoughts there.
Well, two thoughts. I actually think there are some players who are kind of dicks, and I think Tosin kind of manipulated that situation quite petulantly, because he I think he made it difficult for us to move him on because he had it in his mind where he wanted to go, and you could theorize about who we could have sold him on to and where he could have gone and what we could have got, but I think the player's got to agree, and I think he made it difficult. But in general, I do think I have a theory about this, is why we're so bad at selling players, because we know we're so shit at buying new ones. And so we're really scared of actually unloading, knowing that we're probably not going to be able to replace them within the window, knowing what our MO is and how we like to do business late to bottom feed and kind of try and pick up bargains. So that puts us in a difficult position. I think the George thing probably turns on whether Marco stays or recommits, and if he commits early, I think Marco is keen on George. He got cold feet again because it was all really on the table at the 11th hour, and I think at the last minute he pulled the Harry Wilson to Leeds deal. And I don't know what the sequence was, but that obviously totally killed the George opportunity. But maybe we don't know enough about that. Maybe George actually evaporated, and that's why Harry Wilson didn't go. Who knows?
I'm just saying, I said it before, I'll say it again. We have an interesting negotiation strategy to a degree about coming back in for players that we've been looking at before. That's how we ended up with Chukwueze. I never rule anything out. Quick comments from both of you, though. I'm really interested in your thoughts, seeing kind of the new rulings around PSR going away, SCR coming in. I'll be honest, I'm still doing my own research on this, but I know that Fulham was one of the clubs that voted against it. I've seen some graphics where we would be one of the teams, not necessarily in hot water, but one of those right up against the cap. Any quick thoughts on that change?
Well, I'm a little annoyed that the teams that voted for it, basically it means you can't sell assets to yourself, is the simplistic version that I did a quick scan through.
So no AEW sponsorship is what you're saying?
Well, we can't sell the women's team to ourselves, which is exactly what bloody Chelsea and Everton did to fund their splurges. So it's a shame we can't use that trick. I don't know about sponsorship deals. I think we're still waiting on the Man City 116 charges with Etihad before we get Flexing Gate or AEW, which I think would be, the shirts look quite nice. I like AEW in the front, so I think it works. But yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. There has been some chatter about this in our Discord, talking about how it will benefit the bigger clubs, but believe it or not, we are, to a degree, one of the slightly, okay, I wouldn't call us big, but we're bigger than most promoted clubs. Let's put it that way in terms of revenue. So everyone basically just stays in their position. If you're lower mid table, you'll stay there, and if you're upper, you'll stay there. So it's a little disappointing, I
and
guess.
That is entirely and cynically exactly what it's designed to do.
Very fair and very true.
It's going to be wild. I'll be very interested to see how this actually shakes out. I'll be curious to hear how it impacts squad planning, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on for the future. Right now, I think we just need to enjoy the moment, the glorious win of Fulham kicking the Black Cats down the road back up north. I feel optimistic. I'm not sure about both of you going into Tottenham. I don't want to say it too loudly. Our record against them recently has been fun, to say the least. So let's see where this is going to take us. Any final words on Sunderland, on transfers, on Tottenham, anything else? I think we're going to reconvene probably later this week to do a preview. But any other last words, boys?
Yeah, look, I think one hopes that we were talking over the last couple of weeks that we needed some kind of magic, something to turn around this form. One hopes that the win and 3 points and playing fairly well overall has actually done that. Admittedly, when we did well against Tottenham in the last sort of 12, 18 months, I think we were playing better, not to be too negative, but I think we were in better form and things were clicking pretty well. We met them at good times, full squads, playing well, and there was quite a lot of momentum. It's a little different this time, but it's a local derby, and I think we'll be up for it. We always do well against teams that we perceive as better than us, and local ones in particular. So I'm optimistic.
I mean, Elton, all we have to do is see if they have a red and white away kit, because Harry Wilson might just get confused because Thomas Frank's on the touchline and he might just think we're playing Brentford, and that solves all our problems, right?
Absolutely.
Had to get the dig in there. Mark, you want to bring us home?
Yep, why not? It was fun being here, guys. Thanks so much for hosting, Mike. That was awesome. You brought the American exuberance and optimism, so I'm all for it. So anyway, I'll finish with a "You Whites."